Hey guys, this is Tara with Kittens, Weights, and Tarot, and today I am answering your tarot and witchy questions that you posted to my Instagram and to the, I guess, message thing that you can do on YouTube. And yeah, let's jump right into it. So many of you had somewhat similar questions, so I kind of grouped some of those questions together. And you may notice I'm filming in a different location right now. I mean, sometimes I film from my bedroom, but we just cleaned our carpets yesterday. Like, the dude and I rented a rug doctor and we've been cleaning the carpet, so everything is off the floor while the carpet's dry. And I can't very well sit on the floor in front of my altar like I normally do, because then I'd have myself a wet hiney. So I didn't want that to happen. Let's go ahead and jump into your questions. I thought that you had some really good ones, and yeah, let's have some fun. The very first question comes from Pixie Oracle, and they ask, do you work with wands? If so, can you show them in your video? And do you ever work with sun energy? So I do work with wands, and I have a couple on my altar right now. One of them is a selenite wand, and I kind of always have that one nearby, just if I just want to create a quick, like, energetic circle. And some of my other wands are just different, I guess, depending on what I'm doing. I have like some bigger wands if I'm working more like elemental and nature type spells. I have a wand that's actually made out of clay with some like stones in it, and that's more if I'm doing more earthy. Well, the other one, like I said, is nature, but earthy, I mean like think of pentacles, like materialistic, or you know, my physical body, or, you know, something like that. You know, so, but I have a few wands. I have a seashell wand. And yeah, I would probably, yeah, I think I would like to do a video actually, showing you guys my wands. I don't think I've ever showed them off before, so that would make a fun video. So for me, wands are all just about directing energy, and the OG wand that we all have is this one. So we could always direct our energy with our little finger, but you know, we can also have an extension of ourselves in some beautifully crafted wands. Actually, one of my favorite ones is a stick. It's a stick that I found on the ground up when we were driving up in the lagunas, and I just really liked the energy of that branch that I found. So that is my wand, and that's one of my favorite wands. So they don't have to be like super fancy, and they don't have to be like expensive. Just go out in nature, or you know what, just take your hand and but yeah, I'll definitely try and do a video maybe of my wand collection. It's not a lot, so I have like maybe 5, but I could show it off to you guys if you really want me to. But yeah, I just like to direct energy with it, like help me create an energetic circle. Like I said, I could use my finger if I wanted to, but I just prefer using a wand, directing energy into myself, directing energy out of myself. If I'm trying to charge a crystal grid that I'm doing, if I'm trying to charge my altar, it's kind of just, where am I trying to direct the energy? You know, it could be when I'm working with sun energy or moon energy. And actually that leads into the next question. Do I work with sun energy? I would say that that is the main type of energy that I work with. Yes, I work with plants, and I work with, you know, nature and elements and things like that. But, and I do work with the moon, yes, but since I connect so much with summer and warmth and light, that I tend to work a lot with sun energy. So when I charge my crystals, well, some crystals, I can't take all of them out because that would take forever. And so like when people charge them under the moon and things like that, I used to when I had a smaller collection, but actually I like to charge them in the sun. So there's like a few like pieces of jewelry that I might leave out, you know, near a window, maybe not like direct heat, because I don't want things to fade or get messed up, you know, if they get overly hot in the sun, because it does get kind of warm where I live. But yeah, a lot of my spells and everything that I work with has to do with the sun. And I think there is quite a bit of a masculine element to it. And that's because I connected more with not masculine as a male, but masculine type energy when I was younger. And I mentioned it in my Goddess Decks video that I made, that it took me a while to come to the goddess and more of the feminine side and everything. So I now have, I think, a pretty good balance of masculine and feminine, light and dark, in my spell workings. But it used to be a lot of just that solar masculine energy. And the next question comes from Bella B. Hello, I'd like to know more about Reiki. I want to learn it, but people are scaring me out. Reiki, all it is the ability to work with energy, and we're all made up of energy, and that's nothing to be scared of. That's something that science has proven, that there's electrical impulses going on in our brain, in our nervous system, in our heart. For myself, I have a heart condition, and when the rhythm of my heart is off, when the electrical impulses aren't firing as they should, I get some kind of weird palpitations, I have PVCs and I have tachycardia. So what Reiki is just being able to tap into that energy that you naturally have in your body. Science has proved you have energy in your body, and energy cannot be destroyed. It can be transmuted. It can change form, but it can't be destroyed. And that's something that Physics 101 will teach you. And then Reiki is also being able to tap into the energy of another person, which is also nothing to be scared of, because on a daily basis, people are sharing energy all the time. If you share space with somebody within a home, with animals, with plants, it's an exchange of energy. It's just happening all the time. It's what makes the world go round. My uncle actually, I forget what level he is at. I don't remember if he was at like one of the last levels, or I think he was working on the last level for Reiki. He's not quite like a Reiki master, but he was pretty high up there, and I forgot what level it was. But I myself, I've never taken Reiki courses, but energy is something I work with. So people can call it Reiki, but I think it's a particular practice that people do where they have the name Reiki. Where me, I'm more of like an energy worker, and some people are like, could you give that a name? So sometimes I may erroneously give it the name Reiki, but I just work with energy. I'm very in tune with my energy. I'm very in tune with the energy around me. And I try to manipulate that energy in order to offer healing. Everybody needs healing. I need healing. The world needs healing. So that's just kind of what I like to do. So it's nothing to be scared of. I think the more that maybe dive into the science part of it first, and it might take some of the mystery, out of it, and the things that might be scaring you. And then you can dive into the woo-woo part of it, the spiritual part of it. Right, the next question comes from Sheldon, the reaction. Give us good advice on energy. So good advice on energy. Maybe what you're asking is like how to work with energy. So I guess that just kind of goes off of the last question. It's more, again, getting to know your own energy. What does that feel like? Does it feel light? Does it feel heavy? Does it feel lighter or heavier depending on the environment that you're sitting in, or the mood that you might be in? And then some people might be like, well, what does that mean? Like, what does my energy feel like? First, get in touch with your emotions. What are you feeling? Are you feeling happy? Are you feeling sad? Are you feeling bored? And think about what that emotion feels like within your body. When you get pretty good at that, you can start, I guess, being able to tap into when you're in different environments. Let's say you're having a really good day. You're really happy. But you go into this certain person's home, or you're hanging out with this person. All of a sudden, you start to feel really dark and heavy and sad, and you're like, I don't even know why. I was having a really good day. And it's because your energy has shifted. It could be that you walked in just to a very heavy environment. Doesn't mean that the person is bad or that the house is bad that you walked into or the building. It just means that the energy is different from the energy that you brought in. So it's created this shift, and you're feeling that shift, and that's good. That's kind of what you want to learn to tap into, is just knowing when your own energy has shifted, and then the more aware you can be of your energy, I think the more control you can feel over your life. And when I say control, I don't mean like we have control of every aspect, because we don't. Everybody's making free will choices around us. We're making free will choices. We can't help what goes on in our environment and in the world. Mother Nature has agendas, and animals are off doing their own thing. There's so many variables, and everything is just happening all the time, that the best that we can do is just to be able to understand when our energy is high, when our energy is low, what are some good practices to do when our energy is higher, when our energy is low. You could also try meditation, and if you're not one to sit still, I have a hard time sitting still, you could do a walking meditation, which is one that I prefer to do most often. The next question comes from Sayla, and actually she had like 6 questions, so let's look at those. Okay, she asks, what was your first past life experience? Any tips for past life exploration? How did you first connect to your spirit guides? Did you seek them out, or did they come to you? How do you know when to use multiple decks in a reading? And there were quite a few people that asked that one. When using multiple decks in a reading, how do you decide which deck to use for which question? When did you officially debut as a witch? How was the response from your family and friends? And any tips for incorporating tarot into a spell? Quite a lot there. Let's jump into the first part of that, which was, it says, what was your first past life experience? Any tips for past life exploration? So the first time I can remember recalling a past life, I was 16 years old, and I had this dream, and I had it, I guess, a couple of times after that while I was 16, and it was so real and it was so intense that I remember the first time that I had the dream, I was bawling my eyes out in the dream, and when I woke up, I was still bawling my eyes out because I thought in my head that what I saw really happened. And so I think I cried for like 2 hours. I think maybe it was like an hour and a half to 2 hours, 16-year-old me bawling my eyes out because I lost my husband in the war. So I had a dream about World War II, and I had gotten the news after I warned him that I didn't want him to go out and fly that day, but he said he had orders from his commanding officer, and in my dream, but I believe this was more of a past life experience. So let me backtrack. When I have dreams that are intense like that, where my brain is like, no way, that was real, I write that stuff down. Sometimes when I'm just having some weird, like crackheady dreams, it's like my body knows the difference, from just kind of a weird rando dream. I might still kind of write it down because it was kind of weird, to, whoa, that was intense. I need to write that down. That freaking happened. I've done some diving into that since then, and actual research to make sure that what I saw in my dream was real, and it was real. There was stuff, I do have people in the military in my family, but there were certain aspects of the dream I wouldn't know, so did a little research, and research backed up my dream. I was like, that's freaking awesome. So that was my first past life experience. I would say, if you want to dive into it, you could always go to past life regressionists. That's something I want to go to. Tattooed Spirit, he has a Jeff. His name's Jeff. His wife does past life regression, and that's like one of the things that I've been meaning to do. So hopefully maybe I could do it this summer. I want to, give them a call and see if I could do past life regression. That might be really, I think, just interesting. I'd love to like write everything down and just kind of see what happens. Ted Andrews also has a great book if you want to check it out. It's called Uncovering Our Past Lives, I believe. And you can also use a pendulum, you know, have out like a world map and just say like, where was my most recent past life, you know, and kind of go around the world map and just start asking questions, going from broad to more specific. And if you wanted to know a lot more, like I did an entire video on past lives, and that was with a live chat for my live chat crew over on Patreon. And I did like a whole, like just over an hour of just like deep diving into working with past lives. So you could definitely check that out too. But I know that there's a lot of books out there you could read up on. And for me, I think the quickest, easiest is just using a pendulum. You don't need something fancy. You could just take a necklace pendant and use it as your pendulum, or a ring and just attach a piece of thread to it. You know, that makes pendulum. She also asks, how did you first connect to your spirit guides? Did you seek them out? Did they come to you? We all have spirit guides. That's one of my beliefs. So I don't feel like you need to go find them or they need to come find you. No, they've been with you since you were born. I think they kind of switch out a little bit, you know, depending on where you are in your life. That's just like my belief. But I would say I had guides, or I was aware, we'll say that. I was aware that I had guides when I was younger, like a lot younger. Like we're talking 4. We're talking like 4. I can remember back till I'm about like 3 or 4 years old, like just spotty memory. And I do remember being aware that there were energies of animals and fae around me. And they were always kind of like working with me. I was also aware of angelic energy. And I had an angel that I called Angela. And I had another angel that I called Rose. And I just really loved the name Rose. And I was for sure that there was a person named Rose with me. And of course now I love roses, but yeah, and that was my experience. It was just kind of a knowing, a feeling. I used to draw pictures of them. I would talk about them, you know, to my family. And then as I got older and I'm like more into getting in touch with this thing that I had kind of lost touch with because I thought it was just like little kid stuff, I started connecting with my spirit guides in meditation. So first with like guided meditations through Vix from New Age Hipster. Actually, she had really good like spirit guide meditations that I did, and so I got it through her. And then I kind of just like branched off on my own. Also asked how to know when to use multiple decks in a reading, and then how to decide which decks to use in a reading as well. So for me, I just like using multiple decks. If it's a big enough spread, I'll probably use a few decks. Like I like to use a deck for like the theme, and I'll use like a tarot deck and maybe an oracle as like a clarifier, because I like to read different points of view together. Like I consider different decks different points of view. You know, an oracle is a different point of view than a tarot, than Marseille, than Lenormand, than Kipper, you know, so on and so forth. I might even bring runes into the picture. It's just kind of depending on how I feel. Like I tap into the energy of the person that I'm reading for, and then based off their energy, I choose the decks. So if I'm reading for somebody else, I just always use multiple decks. That's just my thing. I like getting that mix of point of view. And then as for which decks to use, yeah, it's just based off of their energy, you know, because there are certain decks that I like that are maybe a little more edgy, but the energy coming off of the person may be a lot less edgy, a little more soft. So I might find softer type decks for them. I do have specific decks for spirit readings. I mentioned that in my decks I use for spirit readings video. And then I have decks that I use specifically for relationship readings. But other than that, it's just kind of off of feeling. When did I officially debut as a witch, and what was the response? So let's see. I don't know. I kind of have always been open about like my beliefs and all of that, but I don't think I officially said, I'm a witch till about 15 years ago, maybe. And it was like nobody cared. Somebody said like, what religion are you? Are you Catholic? Or, and I was like, I was sort of brought up at some point with Catholicism. I was like, I don't know, it's kind of like a mixture of that and a particular sect of Buddhism with like, like Filipino like witch doctor. There's a different name for that, but we'll just put that translation. I was like, so kind of like healer slash witch doctor, kind of thing. And I was mentioning some other stuff, and they're like, so like you're a witch, and I was like, yeah, actually. And nobody seemed to care. Like my friends, they may not believe what I believe, but my friends are pretty cool, so they're just like, oh, that's cool. And sometimes they ask questions, and if they're not like super into it, then they don't ask questions. And so but it's not like my friends have never tried to force beliefs onto me, and I've never tried to force beliefs onto them. Like when they talk and their beliefs just kind of come out with what they're talking about, like I'm open to it, and I do the same. And sometimes we get in discussions, but we've never really like knocked each other for that. And my family, they're all over the board with what they believe in, so they don't care. I thought my grandfather would care because he was like super Lutheran, but yeah, he didn't care. He was like, hey, he says, I don't really care to know what you know, but he says, as long as what you're doing is helping people and you just want to help people and you have love in your heart, I don't care what you believe in. So I was like, oh, okay, and so yeah, that was kind of my family's reaction. They kind of just don't care. They care about me, but they don't. It's not like, oh my gosh, she's a witch. It was just like, well, you kind of have always been into like rocks and energy, and you've always been kind of talking to yourself to like things that we couldn't see, and you've always been working with spirit, and you've always been like making spells in your bedroom when you were a kid. Like they don't. Any tips for incorporating tarot in a spell? I love to use tarot and spells like in tandem. So I like to pull a card intentionally, pull a card for the energy that I want to bring in, and I like to set it on my altar so that can be my focal point as I build my spell. And I usually will, let's say it's the Seven of Pentacles. I will pull the Seven of Pentacles from all my favorite decks. Okay, not all of them, because that's too many cards. So I would probably pull it from like maybe 5 decks, and I would put just so I can see Seven of Pentacles, Seven of Pentacles, like in all these different points of view. And then I build my spell from there. So that's one way to do it. When I've concluded a spell, I want to see what the energy looks like post spell. So I'll pull a few cards just to look at the energy. Also to charge water that I'm drinking for a particular purpose, or tea that I'm drinking, I will place a tarot card nearby, and I ask that the energy of the card enter that which I am consuming. You can do the same with food. So, great. Next question comes from Joss H. Do you have crystal stone recommendations for dreams? Thank you. I have. Okay, I love to sleep with all different kinds of stones underneath my pillow, not all at once, like it's one at a time, but I think for more astral travel, like kind of trippier, more vivid dreams, I will use moonstone, I will use black moonstone, I will sometimes use a labradorite, I've used danbarite, that was a trip. And if I want things to get celestially trippy, moldavite. But yeah, I would say those are my top ones. So yeah, moonstone, like regular old moonstone, black moonstone, labradorite, danbarite, or moldavite. I've never put all 5 of those underneath my pillow. I kind of want to sleep at some point. Not me asks, have you ever started a spell, felt overwhelmed, and couldn't complete it? I like to plan out my spells, no matter how simple they are, beforehand. And if I feel that it's just like, whoa, there is too much to this spell. I'll simplify it because it becomes more like the focus is on being worried that it's being done correctly and that I have everything, than I am focused on what it is that I'm actually trying to manifest or that I'm trying to release or whatever the spell is for. I do have quite a few spell books. You know, I did a video where I showed you guys all my witchy spell books. But I don't always follow those spells like verbatim. I like to kind of make them my own, and I think everybody should do that too. But you know, you do you. But I might look at a spell and be like, "Ooh, this is cool." But as I'm starting to look at like everything, I'm like, "Wow, I don't have that. I don't have that. Wow, I don't really feel like doing that." You know, I start cutting stuff out, or I start taking what I do have on hand and substituting things. But if I think like it's too much of a big show, which I don't mind doing once in a while, but like I'm not a big like show person witch, you know, I'm not that. So I'm more simple. For me, simple gives me laser focus. The more simple it is, the more I can just focus on what it is that I'm trying to do. Then I'm worried about the putting on a show for myself, you know, or the elements, or putting on a show for who? I don't know. Right, Moon Magic asks, do you have any set guidelines for your altar, or do you just wing it? What are your 5 must-have items you put on it? So that's a great question, because when, you know, I first, well, I mean, I've kind of always been a witch, but when I was kind of like actually verbalizing it to people, I felt like, oh wow, I should have an altar, like, but I already kind of did. I just didn't feel like, oh, it looked like everybody else's altar that I saw on Instagram, like real witches, you know? And I say it like this because I felt like real witches had a certain aesthetic, and they looked or act a certain way. And a lot of people, the altars that they had were Wiccan, and Wiccan is not something that I practice. I have aspects of it in it, but because of my cultural background, I have actually, my culture is in what I do. I have healers in my ancestry, you know, so I've kind of like just kind of continued those traditions, but I've meshed them because I'm also multicultural. You know, I've got like the United Nations floating in my blood. So I have like the United Nations of witches in my blood. And so that's what my practice looks like. It looks like the United Nations, but witchy. So let's see, on my altar, how it is now, it's how it feels good now, because now it's like, I finally learned my altar should fit my practice and what I think feels good, and the way I do things. So I do, okay, so you said 5? Yes. 5 must-have items. Okay, I have to have a wand of some sort. I don't care if it's just a stick, because I do have one that's a stick and I love it. I have to have some sort of crystal on there. I have to have some sort of plant or flower, something, even if it's dried, but I have to have something. I have a little succulent on my altar right now. It's cute. It's growing. Let's see, what else do I have to have on there? I have to have my pentacle. I love the, you know, protection. I just feel like I've always drawn pentacles since I was like a little kid. Like I just feel they're very protective. And I have to have a candle. So I don't have to have tons of candles, but I have to have at least a candle in a color that I feel like at that moment. So yes, I have a lot more other things on my altar, but if I just want to simplify it, yeah, I have to have a candle, I have to have a wand, I have to have a crystal, I have to have a pentacle. What was the other thing I said? Oh, like plant, something, even if it's dried. Yes, I must have those things. And those are the basic things I've had as like an altar, and I just didn't know it was an altar since I was really little. And my altar at the time was outside when I was really little. And then when I was a teenager, my altar was on top of my bookcase, which is funny. It's on top of a bookcase now. I just don't use it as a bookcase. This one's by Garrett Wood. Did anyone else in your family practice witchcraft? They did, but like I said, I have a multicultural background, so they all practice differently. So on my dad's side, you know, my grandfather was from Cebu, Philippines, the PI. Mabuhay. But he said, he goes, we're Visayan, we're Abulario, like healers, herbalists. He says, like, basically translated to what some people would say, witch doctor, but basically they were healers. My grandmother, my Nana, my dad's mother, she practiced astrology. She was very into working with spirit and learning about what was going on, like beyond the beyond. So for her, she was always trying to instill in me that it's okay to work with spirits and it's okay if you see spirits. And also she was always telling me different like folk tales and stuff like that. I kind of miss her stories. But yeah, she tried to get me into astrology. I kind of got into it, but I wouldn't say that's my main focus. On my mother's side, I would say her mother, which is my grandmother, was very Catholic. However, there was other beliefs in there as well. Like she did believe in the leprechauns because her grandmother, who was from Ireland, did believe in leprechauns and the fae and little people, and that you had to appease them. So they're always about working with that. My grandmother also believed in the banshee, and there was a lot of like Gaelic and Irish belief in there, and that was also like instilled on me. And my grandmother would always say that we have the gift, the gift of sight. And she said that her mother was a palm reader, basically. She was a super Catholic palm reader, like Irish Catholic palm reader. And she would win the town's lottery all the time and then always give the money back to the town. That was like her thing. She never kept any of the money for herself. And so people would come to her for her guidance, and she never charged for what she did because she believed that Jesus Christ, because she was also super Catholic, would not want that. So she never charged. And then also my dad as well. I mean, there's just a lot going on. There's like Native American too. We have Pima Indian also on my Nana's side, on my dad's side, and there's like a family of healers from a whole different group of different groups of people. So it's like I've said before, it's a party. There is a witchy party. They're like woo woo, like in here. Do you ever meet up with other witches for festivals? I do not, and it's not because I don't want to, it's because I don't know where they're at. I don't know. If there were some festivals here in San Diego or in LA, somewhere within driving distance, and I knew about them, heck yeah, I'd be all in that. But I don't know of any like witchy festivals. I go to like street fairs a lot, and sometimes there's like some woo-woo stuff there, but I wouldn't really call that a witchy festival. But if there was, I'd be all on it. And if you guys are in LA or San Diego County, you let me know in the comments below. I'll hit up that party. All right, our final question. How did you get the courage to put yourself out there publicly? Do you ever have negative reactions from friends or family? And if so, how have you dealt with that? What do you do when you're in the middle of a reading and your mind goes blank? So many questions. So I, talked about earlier about, when I kind of came out of the broom closet, although I think it wasn't really a broom closet. It was more like I just had to open the screen because I already opened the door. So it was just like this very light screen that was flapping in the breeze. And then I came out and everybody's like, it's about time. I've never had any negative reactions. Sometimes here on YouTube, I'll get a negative comment here or there. I just delete it because I don't care. But I don't know. It's been my experience. Everybody's been pretty open and accepting, but I do live in a town that is pretty open about that. And California is kind of open anyway. We're all considered a bunch of hippies over here. So, yeah. And even people who, are pretty conservative, I don't know. They sometimes do the, like, that's not our thing. But, you know, so then I know to kind of, maybe I don't say some things, you know, because I don't want to make them uncomfortable, but they also try not to make me uncomfortable. Then they try not to be like overly Christian-y with me, because they try not to make me feel comfortable. So when I say sometimes I like back up on my witchiness, it's usually just because I don't want to feel like I'm like pushing it onto somebody, just like I don't want somebody pushing their religion onto me. I'm open to ideas, of course, but you know, there's a difference between somebody talking about it and somebody being like, well, why don't you believe, you know? You know, so I've had friends who, you know, they also kind of backed off a little bit, and friends of friends who've done the same. And everybody's been, you know, even if they're not open to that stuff, they've never said anything bad, you know, to me. So, okay. The other part you had was what happens when your mind goes blank in the middle of a reading. That happens often. And it's usually because I get into, I guess you can call it a trance when I'm reading. I feel like my brain is just going so fast, and I'm trying to spit everything out as quickly as possible, that sometimes what I'm saying and what I'm translating isn't keeping up with all the messages that are coming in. So at some point I lose track of where I was, and my brain just goes like hamster fell off the wheel. So then I might pause for a second, and then I do this thing where I in my brain I'll say, I'm usually working with my my spirit guides that are with me. So I'm like, Amara, Ulag, my brain has gone blank. I'm just gonna start saying things, and I need you to put words into my mouth so I can continue saying things. And usually, it doesn't mean I'm starting to speak gibberish, but I'll take that pause, and then I'll take a breath, and all of a sudden the words will just come right back to me. And it's usually just because I ask for help. So sometimes that like helps, you know, if your brain goes blank. And also sometimes our conscious mind tries to jump in and be like, whoa, what are you talking about? What's going on here? Because I was asleep for a second. And I'm like, go away, conscious mind. I'm like in a trance right now. So sometimes it's just about, okay, go away. We're not analyzing. We're just talking. We're just going to let it all out. We're just letting it all out. I'm not analyzing whether I'm right or wrong. Like I have faith in spirit, and I'm just going to let it out. And that usually helps to unblock my brain. All right, you guys, those were all of the tarot and witchy questions. There were more, but they kind of repeated. So I think I was able to finally accommodate like everybody's questions. Thank you to everybody that submitted questions. I thought it was fun to just kind of chill out here and answer questions with you guys. So let me know if you want me to do another Q&A in the future in the comment section down below. And yeah, if you dug this, don't forget to give it a thumbs up. Don't forget to click subscribe, and don't forget to click that ding, ding, ding notification bell for more videos just like this. And if you want to catch a reading from me, head over to www.kittenswaitsandtarot.com. And if you want to throw a little love my way, think about joining the KWT tribe over at patreon.com/kittenswaitsandtarot. And oh, don't forget to sign up for my newsletter, which is on my website. It's absolutely free. I only hit your inbox once a month. I don't spam you with like promotions or like anything. It's just one newsletter. That's it. Once a month, with like witchy DIYs or just arts and crafts DIYs. I also have like decks that I'm using, herbs that I'm using, teas that I'm drinking, YouTube videos that I'm watching, you know, just kind of like having to sit down with you guys. So if you're interested in that, definitely sign up for my newsletter. And yeah, that's it for me, spiritual homies. I will catch you later. Peace, love, and chicken degrees. Peace out.